let's go ahead and get into the Indianapolis Colts offseason recap. But before we get into that, Tyler and I just want to give a big thank you to all of our subscribers that help us hit our 1,000 subscriber goal before the NFL draft. Even though we did hit our goal, still smash that like, smash that subscribe button to help our channel for the YouTube algorithm. We are trying to now hit 2,000 subscribers before the start of the NFL season. So if you can help us reach that goal now, that would be very much appreciated. And Tyler, let's get into the Indianapolis Colts offseason recap. Okay, so the Indianapolis Colts, especially right now, there's a lot of question marks about are they going to go after Lamar Jackson and a whole lot of other stuff. They have been on this tear of getting other teams' quarterbacks and bringing them in. Before we get into what they've added and lost, what are the chances that you think Lamar Jackson is an Indianapolis Colt come September?
Well, it's going into the offseason. I believe it was Jim Irsay, right, that said it's like we're not doing this carousel again. We're not doing this veteran quarterback carousel. And it's interesting just with that, if you take it for a grain of salt, be like, or sorry, if you take it like by what he said exact, then Lamar Jackson's off the table. They want to draft a rookie quarterback. Does not matter who is there, their favorite quarterback that is left available, they're going to draft and build around. But Lamar Jackson has only been in the league for 5 years now.
He was 2019, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's still relatively young. 5 years, yes.
Yeah.
Relatively young, coming off an interesting year where he was hurt. And the style of play that he has, especially with the leg, makes it very interesting on just his overall longevity. However, though he's still young, I still think that he can adapt to maybe to take less hits. A lot of these younger quarterbacks now are learning to be like sliding, not taking hits, less scrambling. And also with the Colts offensive line, offensive setup, I think Lamar Jackson would honestly do really well in the system. You have the speed of Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman on the outside. Jonathan Taylor's one of the best running backs in the league. You have, when healthy, decently solid offensive line that I think you can keep kind of building around. So that offense is kind of there, as well as you have some decent tight ends in Jelani Woods and then Mo Cox as well.
Yeah.
So the offense is kind of prepared for a good veteran quarterback to come in. Their issue is these past veteran quarterbacks that they've had have been really old and have sucked. So yeah. So you're welcome from Atlanta. So it's I think that's it's more on the table there. However, what they would have to give up, I don't know if they'd want to give that up. That's what I'd be curious about.
So that's my thing is like I think if you're looking at Anthony Richardson or Lamar Jackson at 4, Anthony Richardson is just as much of a freak athlete as Lamar Jackson is.
Yeah.
And so if they were to go out and send Lamar Jackson an offer on his non-exclusive franchise tag, they would have to then give him all the money that they agreed upon in the contract, as well as their next 2 first-round picks. So they would have to give up 4 and then their first-round pick next year.
Yeah.
And it's really just like what they feel is worth it. If they feel that Anthony Richardson is too much of a risk and they want to go with Lamar Jackson, then yeah, maybe it is worth it.
Well, what's interesting as we're talking about this right now, Wednesday night, April 5th, the Colts have just shy of $20 million still left in the cap space.
Yeah.
So they can absolutely finagle some money around to where they can pay him and maybe still fit within the cap, or maybe have some other people that aren't signed as well. So that it's very interesting. It's a theory that's coming around, and as we're coming up closer to the draft, I wonder if that's only going to keep getting hotter and hotter. This is something I could honestly see, depending on the Ravens might not even jump on it until they see kind of what the Texans do and what teams do wanting to trade up with the Cardinals. Because let's say hypothetically the Texans take Will Anderson, and let's CJ Stroud or Bryce Young are taking a number 1. Cardinals don't trade back. Then let's say they take Tyree Wilson to go there. Now you still have the second best quarterback available. Maybe they go to the Colts. Hey, we'll give you Lamar Jackson if you give us your first this year and your first next year. And then it's like, and then that's it.
at that point, though, if I'm the Colts, I'd be like, we'll just give you our first this year, and we'll get Lamar Jackson.
And that's fair too.
Because then it's like, well, like if the alternative is C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, then that's not as big of a like that. There's not as many question marks there with those two prospects versus Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a really interesting situation that the Colts are in.
Yeah, especially too. Also, and let's take Lamar Jackson out of this, and let's go with the theory that we're all having right now, saying Panthers take QB. Obviously, you don't do that to take Will Anderson. No offense to Will Anderson. And then Texans probably going to take the next best quarterback. Then there's still no guarantee that the Colts are going to get the third best quarterback because there's a lot of teams potential, and another team in the AFC South. Spoiler alert: go check out a future video of a team that might be able to trade up. That is sitting at 11 that's not named Jacksonville and live in Nashville, Tennessee, and might potentially trade up with Cardinals if they want to get rid of Ryan Tannehill and want to just start a whole new era and begin this rebuilding process. And so then now you're sitting behind two AFC division or two division foes, and now you have the fourth best quarterback available. Yeah, like that's what you build around. That's a total hypothetical, but that's where it is kind of interesting where the Colts are in. They're just in a really weird spot. When instead of coming in the offseason, I'm sure we even talked about it. It's our most popular video that the Colts and the Bears are the most obvious trade back situations because both teams win. And yet now the Colts look like they might be the biggest losers of this entire quarterback kind of battle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do think maybe going elsewhere in the NFL besides the draft might be a good move for them. So that's enough of Lamar Jackson talk. Let's go ahead now and get into the Colts offseason additions and subtractions. I'm going to start off with who they've lost this season. Tyler, what are some of the big losses that you see on the board?
So the biggest one, the top two to come up right now, Bobby Okereke and then Stephon Gilmore. Bobby Okereke went to the Giants. Stephon Gilmore traded to the Cowboys in return, I believe, for a fifth-round pick. And so those to me are the two ones because if there was one positive I would really say about the Colts is actually that the defense was underrated last year. I thought they actually had a really good defense. So losing them too. And also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Yannick Ngakoue, I don't think he has been re-signed yet. Not according to Over the Cap. He's not on a team. He hasn't been. Okay, no, so as of right now, then he's also still not on the Colts either. So that is a key player on each level on the defense. As of this moment, that is not returning to the Colts. So maybe they will come back. A couple of the other guys that are gone. Matt Ryan, QB, I don't think he's officially been cut. I would need to go back and double check, but I think just everyone has assumed he's not coming back. And so then Paris Campbell had moved on to the Giants. Brandon Facey son. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, he's gone on to the Raiders. It's two cornerbacks now that are gone. And then Matt Pryor and then also Byron Cowart, defensive tackle, have both moved on, both to the 49ers and to the Chiefs, respectfully. So in general, to me, those latter ones, even losing Paris Campbell, he's definitely replaceable, especially within this draft. I think that's a position that they have. Also with Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, I think clearly being the 1-2, you can go and find a third receiver, slot receiver type guy that could be easily replaceable. So the biggest thing to me, though, were the losses on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. And sorry, I got a dog hair in my mouth. And to me, I actually kind of like what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. So Yannick Ngakoue has not been re-signed. And they did bring in Samson Ebukam, who is going to play for $5 million less and probably bring a similar value to Yannick Ngakoue. So I like that signing a lot. And then they brought in Taven Bryan, the defensive lineman from the Browns. And then they also brought in Gardner Minshew to add some quarterback depth there. Hopefully he's not going to be the starter. But yeah. And then at the receiver position to kind of replace Paris Campbell, they brought in Isaiah McKenzie. And I think that actually could be a pretty good signing there, especially I think they only had to sign him to a 1-year, $1.3 million deal, which is a pretty good value in my opinion. So I really like kind of what they've done. And with that 4th overall pick, I think they've set them up really well. If that quarterback that they want is not there at 4, I think they're in a prime spot to trade back also. Because I think you look at some of the other teams in that top 10 area, I think they might want to trade up for an edge rusher, might want to trade up for a corner. And then I think these 3 tackles are going to be a hotter commodity than what people are leading on in the pre-draft process. So
yeah. Well, and for me, that's where they could absolutely trade back, or honestly, I think it could be very tough to then not take Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson. I guess whichever play that they like. Even though I would honestly be running up to go get Will Anderson in that situation, because then even then where they're picking in the second round, they're picking 36 overall. Unless if something crazy happens, Hendon Hooker will also be there. Also Tanner McKee. And so both quarterbacks obviously have some question marks. Both are second round quarterbacks or third round quarterbacks for a reason, but still show some potential if you want to go get a young quarterback maybe to build around. But that also being said, though, then they did sign Gardner Minshew. There has been positive reports around people throughout the league just about his performance and how he did with the Eagles. Also, in his time in Jacksonville, for being completely fair, he was on some horrible teams. So if they were wanting to roll with him, I wouldn't necessarily agree with it. However, maybe they can find like somebody in the bottle. However, that would go exactly against what they said at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So I really like what they've done this offseason. I think that they've set themselves up well. If they do decide to take a young quarterback in the 2023 draft, I think that they would be a perfect candidate for that. And then if they decide to trade back or draft an edge rusher, I think that would also just be building this already solid roster. So
yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. The Colts, it's in a very interesting position the Colts are in, because it's like if you look at the Texans, for sure, definitely in a rebuild. Titans, I believe they should go into a rebuild. And then Jacksonville is clearly the best team. However, you look at the talent on the roster and on this offense, they should have won this division last year, with the overall talent. But it just have not been able to piece things together. Yeah, and maybe they got the right head coach now with Shane Steichen.
Hey, so Frank Reich had a good first few years there, but that's kind of pretty similar situations. So all in all, I think the Colts are set up really well for success in 2023. They definitely should be competing for that division and a home playoff game. So I think we're going to wrap up the Indianapolis Colts there. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you want to see the Colts do in the 2023 NFL Draft.